Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Carol. I am a front-end software engineer at Capital One, and I'm a community organizer up in Nottingham. And today I'm here to tell you how to train your imposter. Before we get started, if you do want to follow on your own device, if you can't read well from the back, or you just want to follow along, you can scan this code, or you can go to bit.do/strain-your-imposter with an O. I spell it with an O. I know most people spell it with an E, but imposter with an E comes from the French imposteur, and that is after the Latin root of the word that comes from imposter. I'm a language nerd, I'm sorry. So, what is imposter syndrome? My research started where all good in-depth research starts, on Wikipedia. You don't need to read all of it, it's a lot of text. I just want you to focus on this passage. Not to be confused with the Capgras delusion, in which a person believes that a loved one has been replaced by an imposter. How scary is that? Terrifying. It's definitely more scary than the real thing. So, brains are rubbish. Bear with me. I know it's a brain saying this to other brains, but brains are rubbish. And some of the ways in which they are called cognitive biases. If you fancy some light reading this evening, I highly recommend the Wikipedia page of the list of all the cognitive biases that are known. It has some of your best hits, like the cheerleader effect and the bandwagon effect, but it has a whole host more that you're probably not familiar with, but you definitely do. So, one of the ways in which brains are rubbish is that we as humans really struggle to assess ourselves objectively on our skills and abilities. And today we're just going to cover two ways in which that happens. So one of them is the Dunning-Kruger effect, which, in a nutshell, it's when you're too stupid to know how stupid you are, therefore, you think you're very, very smart. And I think the poster child for the Dunning-Kruger effect has got to be Donald Trump. He's been a businessman for several decades. He has been bankrupt more than once, I believe, and he still thinks he's a very good businessman. But the other way in which this manifests is imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is nothing more than feeling like you're a fraud and you're not good enough to do your job or whatever it is that you want to do. And someone that very publicly suffered with imposter syndrome was Maya Angelou. She was a very accomplished poet, artist, writer. She wrote many, many books. And this is one of her direct quotes. I have written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've been running a game on everybody, and they're going to find me out. So, if someone as accomplished as her can think that about herself, how can I not, really? My experience is a little bit different. It looks a little bit more like this. I'm sat at work with my keyboard, tap, 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 making it up as I go along. And everyone around me just looks real cool. They've got noise cancelling headphones, they know what they're doing, they've got their stuff together. I saw this tweet a few months ago that I thought resonated with me quite a lot, which was, I've been mentoring 2 people over the last year, and every time we sit together, I tell them, tech is huge, you're never going to know everything, you're doing just fine. But when it comes to my inner monologue, it's a whole different situation. Every time I'm at a meeting and I hear a TLA, I start panicking inside because I don't know what that is. It's a 3-letter acronym, by the way, you can have that one for free. So this kind of puts us in an interesting situation because my inner monologue asks me questions like, is it all luck? Am I where I am because I've been extremely lucky? Was the interviewer having a good day and feeling especially benevolent towards me? Or am I a diversity hire? That's always a tricky one, because all the women I've spoken to have thought that in the past. But this is interesting in another dimension, I guess, which is I was talking to my partner, and he is an architect, a building architect, not a cloud architect. And he said, sometimes I sit at my desk at work, and I think that I only got my job because I am a white man. So This one's out there just to prove that our brains are rubbish and they've got us all covered with a paranoia. And so I was watching a talk by Jo Frank on imposter syndrome, and she posed the imposter paradox. If you are really a fraud, how can you fool all the people around you if they're that much smarter than you? How does that work? So this sounds very gloomy, but how do we get over it? Personally, I don't think the voice will ever go away, but there's ways you can tone it down. You can train it. For me, the best one so far has been getting feedback. I am lucky to work in a company that's got feedback mechanisms and is highly encouraged. And feedback helps you in two different ways. When you get positive feedback, you're reinforcing yourself in the things that you're doing, and you have objective proof that you're doing all right in those bits. And when you get constructive feedback, it is also very useful because you have something very concrete and specific to focus on and get better, instead of your brain just coming around and being like, you're rubbish at everything. You can say, actually, no, I can work on these things and then I'll be fine. Talk to people about it. I know that there's loads of talks about imposter syndrome, and I know some of you have heard about it a fair amount. But every time I talk about this, someone comes up to me and says, I had no idea, I thought this was just me. And going through something like this alone is very, very scary. So definitely talk to everyone. It doesn't have to be in this dynamic. Have a coffee with people at work and see how everyone else is doing. Because when you find that someone that you greatly admire, like Maya Angelou, did all the amazing things that she did while feeling the way that she did, you know that you can do them as well. Keep a yay list. So this one makes me very happy. And it's just keeping a list. It can be public, it can be private, it can be whatever you want it to be. But just note down the things that you did that were good. And sometimes that will be you finished a really difficult project. And sometimes it will be you got out of bed. Some days it's really hard. So keep that as your own motivation and proof that you can do stuff. That has really helped me find my personal mantra, which is, I don't know, but I will figure it out. Coming to terms with that has been really freeing, especially in an industry like tech, where you can't really know everything now, but you definitely don't know what's coming next. So having a list of things that you've figured out in the past helps you know deep down that you can figure things out again. And the last one is be kind to yourself. We're all out here doing the best that we can in the circumstances that we're in. So be as kind to yourself as you possibly can. You would never talk to a friend the way that you talk to yourself. So be your own best friend. Thank you.